It was just.
Sorry, we were talking about
No,
that.
you're not. You shouldn't even.
I want to call this meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. First order of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Mac Hodges.
Okay, all right, let's stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And our next order of business is to read our mission statement. Mr. Terry Draper.
Beaufort County Schools will provide quality educational programs and services to ensure student academic and vocational success.
Thank you, Terry. Next is public comments. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment? Okay, we're going to move right along to the agenda 2.1. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Next is the approval of the minutes. If you were not at any of these meetings, you'll notice there are April 15th, 30th, May 9th, May 7th. If you'll let Lisa know.
Yeah, note for the May 7th meeting.
Terry Williams for May 7th.
And that was the 9th meeting.
The 9th for Michael. Anyone else? Okay, other than that, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. And now to the part where most of you are here for this reason, so we like to go ahead and let you go first. So we're going to do the Character Education Award, and Miss Ashley Padgett is going to help us with that. And our board member will be Miss Booth.
Good morning. I'm reading for Nicole Howard Spencer for tonight. For May, the Character Education nominees were for the personality trait of perseverance. K-5, Bath Elementary, Jose Ponce Puga. Chocowee Middle Elementary, Caden Daughtry. Chocowee Primary, Candace Foster. Eastern Elementary, Samuel Garrett. John Cotton-Talo, Glendy Chavez, John Small, Freddie Skinner. Northeast Elementary, Excel Barazella, and S.W. Snowden, Awad Nazar. And the winner today is from Bath Elementary, Jose Ponce Puga. If he would come forward, Jose. Mm-hmm. Jose is in first grade. His parents are Maria and Gregorio. If they would stand, if they're here. Thank you very much. And he was presented by Julie Woolard. Perseverance means to continue in spite of difficulties or not giving up. Jose came to first grade with an attitude of determination. He had already decided that he was going to work hard to be successful in first grade. Throughout the year, Jose has put forth extra effort to improve his reading. He loves books. And on most mornings, you can count on him running in the classroom asking to read his book to us. It seemed that he just could not focus on anything else until that was taken care of. His enthusiasm for reading brought so much joy to our classroom. We are proud of all that Jose has been able to accomplish. It gives us great pleasure to nominate him for perseverance. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are so proud of you. We know that your parents are proud of you, your teacher is proud of you. Now you've come to the Board of Education and they can make you proud. What I want you to do is go around and shake their hands, okay? So they can say thank you to you. Let me see if I can line you up with something right here, right quick, okay? This is your charm for persevering, okay? And then, do you have a little certificate? that's going to help you keep on persevering, okay? All right, well, let me get you to go around and shake the board's members' hands.
Congratulations, Jose.
Good job, young man. Come on, buddy.
There you go.
That's what I better start doing.
Okay, for middle school, for grades 6 through 8. From Bath Elementary, Seamus Antrakon. Chocowinny Middle, Zoe Rouse. Northeast Elementary Middle, Oscar Vega Machado. P.S. Jones, Davis Jones. And S.W. Snowden, Dina Aquintini. The winner this time is Chocowinny Middle School, Zoe Rouse. Zoe was nominated by 2 teachers. She was nominated by Melanie Taylor and Robin Potter, and her parents and guardians are Ashley and Matthew Rouse, if they would stand. Okay, thank you. Zoe has displayed this character trait through her growth this year. This is from Ms. Taylor. She has transformed into a student that is striving to do her best in all aspects of her life. She has persevered through her study habits. While she spent a great part of the school year trying to avoid certain tasks, she has now come to address them head on. She spends any extra time she has in the classroom reading and rereading material to better understand it. She has also asked for extra work to practice skills and ask questions during the school day. Her grades have benefited greatly from this change in behavior. She has kept to the path of reforming her thoughts and direction in life, which is a very difficult task for preteens. I am proud of her and all that she has accomplished. And also from Ms. Potter, the start of this school year appeared to be a difficult transition for Zoe from elementary school to middle school. But she has become a student who works hard, is willing to help others, and can make judgment calls on her own. She has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she now has a good grip on middle school student life and is striving each day to improve her grades and her character. So thank you.
We are proud of you. We are. Can I? That's right. You just want to say keep persevering. And it's going to be good. Always. Okay? Know that we love you. We're proud of you. Shake your hands up. Please.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job.
You can take this for you.
For high school, nominated tonight from the Ed Tech Center is Kieranna Jackson, and Southside High School, Shantez Clark. The winner is from Ed Tech Center, Kieranna Jackson. She's in 9th grade. Seth Hobbs, her teacher, nominated her. I would like to nominate Kieranna Jackson for Character Ed Attribute of Perseverance. Kieranna has been coming to school for several semesters, and even though she may be tired or discouraged, I have never seen anything keep her from ultimately coming to school and pursuing her goals. She has a sweet disposition and is a model student at our school. Her behavior is always excellent, and she is willing to pitch in and to help students or fellow teachers or fellow students. She always writes her vocabulary words and finishes her written work immediately. If she misses anything, she is sure to come and find out what she needs to succeed. Her English project was amazing, with a lot of detail in her PowerPoint slideshow and a ton of cool effects and information. She continues to be an example to others. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I enjoy doing this. and for such a great character. This is really nice. We're just so happy that you are persevering and that you're going to continue persevering over wherever, be it at Tech or be it somewhere else, as long as you're persevering for the goals that you have in life. So I want you to go around and get the board members' hands and come back to me.
Congratulations, Karen.
If our award winners will come up and we'll have your picture made.
Uniform of money?
Right, great job. Miss Booth, you're not done. You're not done? No, we have more students to recognize because that's what we do in Beaufort County Schools. We have some great students, and I applaud all of you that are working so hard. I wish we could give out even more. But next, we're going to recognize some winners from John Small Elementary School. They are grant winners, and I think Mr. Cheeseman has the information. Okay, very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to announce that 3 students won a Lowe's Toolbox for Education grant in the amount of $2,500 through a research project for Lego robotics. These students recently learned about the psychological effects of plants on the brain, so they took the initiative to write this grant. On May 10th, they got word that their project, Plant Positive, was funded, and they'll be able to provide plants in every single classroom at John Small. Each classroom will now have a plant to help calm nerves, improve memory, increase brain performance, and boost moods. I'm going to need some of these plants in my office. Pardon me. This idea and grant work was totally that of the students, which is really impressive to me. When I saw this go out on Twitter, I started following this directly. So we are very, very proud. So at this time, I'm going to ask the 3 students to come forward. Miss Lydia Smith, Miss Mackenzie Conaway, there you go, and also Ms. Alizon Resendez. There you go. Ms. Duke, can you get a photo of them, please? Right here, and shake their hands. Can you shake the board's hands? Come all the way through.
Great job.
Congratulations. Thank you for working so hard. Congratulations.
Good job. Taking on that work on your own.
Did a great job, Miss Booth.
Oh, yes, Miss Booth, there you go. Get you in the picture.
You just persevere.
Congratulations. All right, so photo. Best smiles, looking this way. Awesome. Ladies, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
You can sit down.
You're good. Thank you.
You're off duty. You're off duty.
Yeah. Did a great job, Ms. Booth. Thank you. I want to thank all of you out there that brought your children and to be recognized. And I know that it's a very busy time of year for everybody. So the fact that you took the time for this tonight is just proof positive why they are getting these awards, because they have your support and they cannot do without it. So keep doing what you're doing, parents and guardians and friends and neighbors and grandparents. We really do appreciate it. They're beautiful on the outside as well as the inside. They're working hard. I want to wish them all good luck on all the testing that's coming up. It's just a test. You'll do fine. And at this point in our meeting, Those of you that were here to get recognized, we understand you have other things to do, and we take a little short break so that you can slip out, but you are more than welcome to stay with us, too. But we're not insulted when you don't want to. Everybody have a great evening.
Yeah. Carolyn. Max said you won't let the SRO go too.
I don't know that we need the SRO to stay at this point, do we?
I need to stay at Joe's in the back room.
And we are down to just employees. You are also welcome to stay, but you're welcome to go too. We're finished with the public. So, thank you so much. And that is how you clear a room. You finish with awards. All right, we're going to move into the no action portion, and the very first one is 5.1, the P.S. Jones Memorial Park update. Mr. Cheeseman.
Sure, just wanted to give you a quick update, specifically now that the City of Washington is helping us with creating the applications or the appointments for utilizing the park. The city wanted the board to consider what you would believe would be a viable use, meaning are people who register to use the park allowed to bring tents? Are they allowed to bring alcohol on campus? Are they allowed to bring tobacco on campus at times when school's not in session? So in short, I would like you to think through what you believe should and should not occur as people are utilizing the Memorial Park. We'll bring back to you in June something for action for your consideration, and then whatever you as a board decide on, we'll then give to the City of Washington as they're looking for guidance, as they do have people who would like to use the Memorial Park, say for Friday night, Saturday, Sunday events, but they're being asked, since school's not in session, but is still technically a part of the school property, are they allowed to bring in alcohol? Are they allowed to bring in live music? So those are things to just really talk about over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll bring back a suggestion to you, and then you can decide from there.
Mr. Cheeseman, is there any other school or county around us that may have something similar to this?
I can
we
check.
Check with some of their guidelines?
Yeah, I
we
can
can look
check.
and see? That's on the school property.
Yeah.
Are we liable after hours like that?
That was my question. I have some questions about the liability and the responsibility that we are.
Yeah, I do too.
By allowing, especially the alcohol part, we're really pushing an extra responsibility on law enforcement. So I think it probably really bears some discussion and consideration.
I think you would still be held liable because it is your property.
I feel like the city's probably already got some policies in effect for like Havens Gardens and other parks. So maybe if we could see
what those guidelines are.
See what those guidelines, because I'm sure.
Well, that's what they're doing. I mean, that's what they have. That's what they are willing to offer those. But they want to make sure that the board is okay with the guidelines that they have.
And I know that there's a committee, Ms. Booth. Can you find out what their recommendation is?
Oh, sure.
That would be nice to know, because I want us to be as flexible as we can be with the committee that's worked hard to put all this together, but at the same time, we have to look out for our liability and responsibility that goes in with it. So if you can find out and bring that back to us.
Sure.
I think the smoking part of it is the one concession that would be easy if it's all outside and disposed of properly. I see smoking at most all the other parks, you know. So.
Well, we'll have something for you in June to consider.
Next would be 5.2, the Golden Leaf Grant update.
Excellent. So myself, Ms. Petteway, Ms. Lilly traveled to Rocky Mountain today to meet with Golden Leaf Foundation members, specifically Ted Lord and Jason Rochelle. In your document, you should see an email that was forwarded at the conclusion of that meeting today around 3 or 4 general items that they would like follow-up on. Specifically, number one is due tomorrow. They want to see how sincere we are, but they would like me to prepare a letter on your behalf of the board requesting a project modification. So specifically, we're just making it formal now that we would like the Golden Leaf Foundation board to look at our project and allow us to make changes appropriately. If you look at number 2 and 3 specifically, they just want to understand a detailed list of the relevant programs and the courses that are available at each school as they're designed. And then, of course, what type of equipment that would look like at each school. And then, of course, what does the funding breakdown look like for each school. So, in short, by the end of May, we'll have that information back to them. And again, I want to thank Ms. Petteway and Ms. Lilly. I thought it was a very positive conversation for roughly 1 hour. They did have questions as to why we wanted to change location, but they just wanted to make sure that the initial grant, its intention and its integrity of working with our business partners and our community was not being jeopardized. So at this point, they'll get this information by May 31st. Those 2 individuals already mentioned will present it to the Golden Leaf Foundation Board at their regularly scheduled board meeting June 3rd through the 5th. And so we should have an understanding coming out of that meeting in terms of how we'll proceed. All right.
Do we need to make this a action item to vote on you making a project modification or requesting a project modification?
No, you don't need to. They just want to make sure that the board is aware that we're doing this.
So this isn't technically an action we need to take?
No,
Okay.
this is no action. It's just providing you an update that we've asked for this.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Lilly, Ms. Petteway, and Mr. Cheeseman. Next, we're going to go to 5.3 SRO contract.
Sure.
We've got an attachment.
So this may not be new to you, but I just wanted to provide this document to you, again, as there have been some questions about the SRO MOU specifically and being the new superintendent into the district. It was a good time for me to review. But I just wanted you to have it as a Board of Education in your toolkit so you know what our MOU actually says and what the terms are. And this term and an agreement goes through June 30th of 2021. So these are just points of interest that all parties have agreed upon and that we try to utilize and bring this document back to the table when there are questions in that regard. But should you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. But
I do.
I just wanted to make sure it was in front of you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On page 2, the location of services, it doesn't list some places where it doesn't list Chocowinty Primary, Eastern Elementary, or John Cotton Taylor. And there are resource officers on those campuses being shared, isn't there?
And where?
Yeah.
But they're not in there.
Eastern Elementary.
I know there's one at Eastern, and I don't know if she I think it's a she now that's shared between them and John Cotton Taylor. Is there not one ever at Chocowinty Primary?
I wouldn't say ever.
Sometimes?
Sometimes.
I think since the point of this being written, they've added onto our
Okay.
campuses. But I can go back and ask the sheriff's office to update this MOU. I'm thinking the way this is written.
Because this is 9, and we talk about 13.
Sure, but I think the way this is written, where it says shall be, this is what they're guaranteeing, and then everything else is additional personnel. But this is what they're guaranteeing.
Okay. I knew that there was one at Eastern sometimes, and at
Yes.
John Cotton Taylor, so I didn't know if that one was being removed or what.
No, this was originally from July 1st of 2018, so
gotcha.
I would think more personnel's been added, but
Okay.
that's the minimum.
All right. Are there any other questions?
When were you going to bring it back for approval? For the next period? Is that what you're asking for, or are you just saying?
No, I'm
is
not
it just
asking for it.
ongoing?
No, this
I
was
mean, I know
already-
it's not approval tonight.
No,
But
no.
does it just run through this year? I thought we had to do it each year.
No, this is actually written through June 30th of 2021.
Okay.
When was that amended? Because I could have swore we didn't approve anything last year, and now it's for 3 years. So the one I thought we approved or were going forward with last time was only good for the next school year, which would have been ending this June.
If you scroll
Correct me
down-
if I'm wrong, please.
No, you're right. Scroll down to page 11 of your PDF. At the very bottom, marked Roman numeral 15 under amendments, you'll see that it was amended on July 31st of 2018, I believe.
Yeah, I see that. I'm like, as Terry said, I was under the impression it was year to year,
So did I.
but I do know that Kim had to go back and write some other things. Maybe she just didn't represent it.
If you look at the first page, specifically under Roman numeral 1, term and termination, second sentence after the declaration of 3 years says, however, the parties shall review the terms of this MOU at least annually
And amend it.
and may amend it
Okay.
at any time in writing by mutual agreement. So with that, I think you have the opportunity to review it each year and then make request for an amendment.
Okay.
But this is partially why I'm handing it all to you right now, is just to get everybody on the same understanding of what you did agree to.
Okay.
I would just ask what I've already mentioned to you. Section 5, just review the hours and
Yes,
just
sir.
clarify with me what it means by normal school hours.
Okay.
So if the school takes in at 7:50, the final bell rings at 7:50, first bell rings at 7:40, and car riders begin at 7:30, and teachers have to arrive at 7:30, what does normal school hours mean?
All right. I'll make sure I report back at our next meeting.
Thanks.
Yep, no problem. I got it written down.
Any other questions? All right. We're gonna-
I mean, what is the plan for them to get a SRO at these other schools?
I don't, at this time, don't think there's a greater plan than what's already in writing, sir, to be honest.
And our county commissioners, I think, clarified that the money that came to us that then flowed back, they were going to work on a fix
Yes, they're
for that.
trying to fix that right now for us.
Is that correct, Willie Mack? And that they were only receiving funding for the SROs that were in place, correct? The money that they allotted was for SROs at every school. We don't have them at every school. So it was my understanding at our joint meeting from their finance director that they were only paying for the ones that we actually had. But since this was written, didn't she say, or Brian said they were at every school but one?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
The funds that came through, I believe, were for 13 officers, the 765 figure in the formulas of the documentation that I remember us discussing.
Right.
And basically, the flow through was for, I believe, they understood it for grant purposes, is why they were bringing it through and we were giving it back.
Right, right.
And so that money, they have agreed not to do the pass-through and pass back.
Okay, so we're not going to have to give up a portion of that,
The 6%.
the 6%?
Correct.
Correct. All right. Thank you for you all doing whatever you had to do to make that work. I appreciate it.
I really dislike having to keep being a thorn in the side of this issue. But if that's the case, it's a pass-through, and I don't know that we don't have any control over it, but is that money for 13 officers going back to the sheriff's office? I think the residents of this county deserve to understand that they may be actually paying for services that are not being accommodated for. Correct? Because if they're issuing us a check for 13 officers, in fact, if we only have 9, then we're 4 short. They should not be getting paid for the full 13 officers.
But I think Brian said that we had 12. I mean, he said we had all but one.
13, 17.
So I'm assuming that meant 12, if he was counting 13 as being the totality of officers.
Because we don't have one we don't count early college.
Right.
So there's
because
only 13.
they have security
So there's
at
so 13
community
is the
college
correct-
already.
Right.
So it was our understanding at the meeting, you were there, that they were only, the county was paying for what we had, not what we were supposed to have necessarily, but what we had. And then Brian added, but we do have all but one. So I'm assuming that means.
So we really have 12, is what you're
Right.
telling me.
Is that what you're saying, Willie Mack?
I was under the impression the one that he was talking about was the 13 and the one at EdTech was not, but I'm not sure.
I'm not either. When it got a little confusing there, I let
The
it go.
one at EdTech is not one. We have one
Not
at
EdTech, early college.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. No, we have one at EdTech.
Okay.
But the calculation was based on the 13 that passed through.
Okay.
So the funds that's released to the charter, those people, the one that they had in place, are you saying that they did not get the money from the charter until they was also in place?
The way the charter funding works, that any appropriation that we receive, any dollar appropriation that comes from the county, they are due a per pupil allocation of that fund, of those funds. So right now, as of the fiscal year 18, it was about 6.21 cents for every dollar that came across. So of that, what was it? So basically $37,000 because of that pass through. We had to get you charged for.
And we're no longer going to have to do that.
That's my understanding.
Good.
They
Told us they're fixing that.
yeah, Anita in finance and Willie Mack have come up with a way that they'll fix that, so that'll be good. Any other questions? Thank you. Let's move on. And I was thinking this was Joe, but this is for Mr. Cheeseman. North Carolina High School Athletic Association, and you've got 2 links. The eligibility 1.2.
Joe, feel free to jump in any time. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have in front of you 2 opportunities now that the North Carolina High School Athletic Association has put into immediate effect after long research and study. One is allowing homeschool students to actually play sports with the public school entity of where they are domiciled. And the second one is actually the gender of player when you're looking at transgender students and the rules specifically around how a student can play a sport if they're a transgender student. So first we'll look at homeschool. This is for your reading pleasure. It's probably going to take a little bit to digest, but if you look at the front page of the handbook version under 1.2 eligibility, specifically located in red on your screen where it says 1.2.1 letter B, homeschool students. In order for a homeschool student to actually participate in a high school athletic, on a high school athletic team now, they'll have to actually be duly enrolled. And so part of your decision-making process will be to next month come back and talk to me around whether you would like to create a Board of Education policy and or just allow the superintendent's position to create an administrative regulation. And so specifically I'm giving this information to you so you can read through it and understand it. But in short, in order for a homeschool student to participate on one of our sports teams for where they're domiciled, they would have to have the documentation from the Division of Non-Public Education, meaning that they must be able to show that they are now duly enrolled. So in short, they're going to have to take 2 courses with our LEA, meaning Beaufort County Schools. And so considering that, part of the reason why you may have to either write a policy or a regulation is you'll have to decide what on-campus means in terms of those courses. So North Carolina High School Athletic Association would like the homeschool student to be enrolled with the LEA, but attending school, meaning at campus. Now, there are some circumstances where we have online courses. There may be circumstances where the child doesn't have to actually come to the physical site to take the online course. So we're going to have to decide specifically what does on campus mean. The second part, homeschool students must communicate athletic intent as at a member school in which they are domiciled and follow the enrollment and assignment procedures by the local board. And with that, they have to have notice to the principal, must take place within 10 days prior to the first practice. So this does not mean a student who's suddenly moved to the area and is 5 days from practice of, say, football season or volleyball season, since it's coming up. What this means is this is a student who has been in your LEA, who's been a homeschool student, so they would need to declare to the principal within the first 10 days of that practice, or excuse me, before practice starts. They would have to declare to the principal in writing that they would like to play a sport and that they are going to enroll into the school system. And so with that, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association is trying to ensure several things, but one of those is to make sure that the child is not moving from school to school to school to play a sport of choice when a team is having a great year versus not having a great year. So considering the rules of 365 and eligibility would still stay in place. The other part of that, too, is by having 2 courses through the LEA. The ADM would follow the child to the LEA. And it doesn't matter what courses they are. Those courses could be AP Calculus and Environmental Science, or they could be Health and PE, but it just has to be 2 courses, no matter what the degree of strength of those courses are. Specifically, the other part of that too is just looking at fairness of play. I think that's part of this too, where the board would have to look at eligibility of the student. For example, and I say this in kind, but you would look at the transcript, the GPA, the attendance of the student. I'm not certain any homeschool student who would apply to come play would have a low GPA or attendance issues. So we would also have to look at those regulations to be a part of it. But with that, you have in front of you the eligibility of initial entry, master eligibility rules, and of course, the age of the player and the attendance all prevail, and plus their scholastic requirements. But this takes effect right now. I mean, this is in effect. This is what Joe and I hosted athletic directors last week to let them know that their site-based principal needs to be aware of this and to have procedures in place. And so at our next board meeting, I want to ask you whether you'd like to have a policy about this or a regulation. And then the second part is to talk about the gender of player. And this also comes around the fairness of play and also the appropriateness and safety of students. So specifically, when you're talking about gender of player, right now, you are seeing a move towards making sure that there's been the appropriate documentation to recognize that a student who is listed, let's say as a male on their birth certificate, has assumed the status of female for a long period of time, also, or I should say a time frame, which in of itself would accompany the proper documentation, possibly from a medical doctor, possibly from other medical professions, I should say, professionals that would help be able to supply the documents that are consistent with gender identification. Simply put, a student who, say, for example, wanted to play basketball and maybe got cut from a boys' team could not suddenly turn around and declare that he associates as a female and then suddenly try out for the female team. So there is a gender identification process. The student who identifies as a different gender would have to go through gender identity request process, which is a formalized pathway to ensure that all steps have been followed for consideration for competition. So with that, adding to it, if you are the home team, if your team, specifically in Beaufort County Schools, has a student, a transgender student who wishes to compete, makes the team, you must allow the opposing team that you're traveling to notice that you do have a student who identifies with a different gender, so therefore they have the appropriate care measures in place for separate setting of changing, separate setting of supervision. And so, such as bathrooms, locker rooms, separate settings. And ultimately, we want to make sure that whatever policies and or administrative procedures you'd like me to put in place act with respect and safeguard the student from any type of harm. And so in short, these are 2 of the policies that the North Carolina High School Athletic Association has put in play. But again, you're looking at homeschool and also transgender that Joe and I and the principals are going to be working through it. But specifically with all of it, it's going to require documentation for homeschool and documentation for the gender of play. Any questions?
I'm trying to understand the way this is written, and I don't. On right at the first one, a woman shall not participate on a men's interscholastic athletic team where the school has a women's team in the same sport, or where a school sends an entry to the women's state playoffs in that same sport. Are we speaking about a birth-born male identifying as a woman, or a birth-born woman identifying as a male? If, for instance, a birth-born woman that wants to play on the male football team.
They're talking about a girl wanting to play football. She can't if we had girls football.
Okay, well, let's say soccer.
We have female soccer, so girl could not play
On a male soccer team.
But what Mr. Cheeseman was referring to is the boy who identifies, I'm a girl, and he wants to play girls soccer. That's different than us not having a team. There's no girls wrestling team at Washington High School, and a girl wants to wrestle on that team, she may. But now we got a guy that wants to play girls basketball. That's where this would come into effect.
So if a girl identifies as a male and wants to play on the male soccer team, she can't because
If
we have...
girls soccer, she couldn't. She would have to go through the same
Okay.
petition as the male wanting to play a female sport.
I'm sure there's a ways to go in this policy getting refined, but
So this is where, honestly, this is where documentation is going to play an effect when you're looking at the gender of the player who wants to follow suit in that way. So specifically, the player would have to complete a gender identity request form. They would have to have supplying documents from a medical professional, which may or could include a mental health professional. They would also look at the medical records. They would want to see pathways or steps of how the individual has, say, lived the life of the opposing gender. So if you had a young lady who now assimilates as a male, they would want to see, well, how are you living the life of a male for a long period of time? Same thing in the reverse.
okay.
So I guess this means we will have to, at some point, establish a gender identity committee?
At some time, yes, the local board would have to establish some type of committee to review all the documentation, and that's why.
He wants to be the chair. You volunteering, Butch?
And that's why. That's why I'm asking for your consideration of this for next month to determine whether you'd like me to have just an administrative level regulation or a board policy to it. Now, there is actually probably a leader in some of this work. Scarlett Steiner, who's the athletic director with Chapel Hill Carborough, has done some amazing work around this, trying to ensure fair play, but also, the appropriate care. And so with that, if we do have questions, we can always contact her directly just around what some of the documentation and procedures have looked like. But right now, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association has approved both of these policies. They are in effect for this upcoming year, or essentially they're in effect right now. So
we'll
But there
lean
are-
on the North Carolina High School Athletic Association for direction if we have some questions.
true, and you would have to make sure when you talk about having an LEA committee, you would have to make sure that you would be making a comparison of the documentation for what is required, and we would also have to make sure that we avoid personal, political considerations to that. But in short, we have to make sure that the student of consideration meets all of the policy requirements. That's essentially what you're looking at.
Okay.
I got a
All right.
question.
Sure.
You just knew I did. I'll read this when I get home, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
go through it, and I'll study it, and I'll do all the things I'm supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
But maybe you can just give me a head start.
Sure.
Back to the homeschool piece. You mentioned a couple of things. I just want to be clear so I can start thinking about it.
Yeah.
One is we would have to make sure of eligibility. One is their grades,
Yeah.
which they're going to be.
Noted.
And second is their attendance record, which obviously they're going to be because when they get up, they're out of school.
Right.
So I doubt they're going to be late for school since they stay at school.
I understand.
And I know we can't change what they've done,
Correct.
but I just want to voice how ridiculous it is against our public students, school students, that that's what they have to go against. Since they have to actually get up and actually go to school, they don't live at school.
Right.
But that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. Did I understand you to say, though, that we could define what attending two classes means online or on campus?
Yeah, so
Can we make a policy that says if you have to enroll in these two classes, you have to take them on campus? Is that what you're saying?
yes, you have to define what on campus means.
On campus means that you come to school and you're on campus. Can we do that?
Yes, you can define. That's what I mean by going back to creating a Board of Education policy, meaning
Okay.
there are some LEAs And there are some students that take college-level classes online, but never actually have to go to the physical site.
I understand that. We've dealt with that in a school recently, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
Well,
So,
I'm only one person. That's what I want in the policy.
Gotcha, sir.
I want them on campus, setting on that campus.
Okay.
If they're going to play ball at Southside, I want them to take 2 classes right there on that campus at Southside. Same at Northside, same at Washington High School.
My only, I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate, Terry.
I'm sure
but
there is one.
We currently have students that we'll say Southside, but I know of a few at the other 2 schools that take all of their courses at Beaufort Community College or online. They still consider Northside their home school because that's where they took all their classes prior to being a senior. But as a senior, they've taken everything that that school has to offer. And so now they're taking courses at Beaufort Community College. I don't want that child, that student, I don't want to call a 17 or 18-year-old a child, but they are to me, but
They
I
are.
don't, they're allowed.
They're a child, don't worry.
Right.
Yeah, they're a
That's
child.
true. They're allowed to still play sports at that school. So we have to be careful that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. In other words, if this student at Northside takes everything at Beaufort Community College, but we're going to say, but you can't play baseball because you're never on campus at school, we're not going to do that. We're going to let that student play baseball
But they've taken
because
classes there over the years.
over the years.
I'm only saying that
But,
Mr.
Mr.
Cheeseman
Chairman,
said we could.
that's not referred to as a homeschool student.
That's
scenario
exactly
No,
right.
you're pointing
he's talking about what those 2 courses could be. And if they are a senior, it could play into it that the 2 courses they want to take at whatever their home, wherever it would be, that those courses are only offered online. I want to make sure whatever the policy is that we handle that gray area.
Right, but I mean, the scenario you painted was not one of a homeschool
That's right.
student.
That doesn't apply to what
That
we're
doesn't
talking
apply.
about here.
See, that person,
No, but
that
they're not
person
on
you
campus at
talked
all.
out. Well,
But
I
that
understand
doesn't-
that, but they're still a Northside High School student. They're
And
still
they-
enrolled in our school system. It's just they've graded out on all their courses that we have to offer in class, and now they're taking college-based courses.
And they were on campus.
What she's saying is correct and has merit. I mean, if a student was to come to Northside and already have all their other stuff and need to take psychology or Spanish 3 or whatever, French or whatever, that's not offered at Northside, but it's offered through the community college.
But they enroll as a
But
Northside
as
student.
they enroll as a Northside student, then, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I have to.
And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I just say we need to address that and
Yeah.
make sure that we're being across the board fair. Because I know of a lot of students that no longer attend their home campus because all their courses are either online or at the community college, but we still allow them to play sports, and they may not have actually attended a class at their home school for a year and a half. Andrea, I'm putting you on the spot. Aren't there some that by their junior year have almost satisfied all their credits? Dr. Wood?
I've still got to argue that point.
I know one.
Because I'm with Terry. They're not going to be part of the division of the non-public education system. These are people that never took a day of school at Northside.
And I
they're
feel the same on
homeschooled.
that.
The other kids earned what they're doing because they were there their freshman year, their sophomore
That's
year.
exactly right.
And
Well,
I
unless they
understand.
moved
different
there.
scenarios.
Unless they
And if
moved
we
as a
have to
junior.
go that way, we'll go that way.
Right.
But to make my point so that everybody's very clear, because I don't really, think what they think of me, I don't care. There is no fairness to the system. You said let's be fair. There is no fairness to the
I
system.
know.
If it was a
I just
fair
wanna
system, we
try.
wouldn't even be talking about it.
I
Right.
know, but I want to try.
So there's 2 other points of interest that I would find that you might be interested in. So in terms of graduation rate and dropout rate, typically what you would see is that just before graduation, the student would unenroll, because you can't actually have 2 different diplomas from 2 different schools in that moment. But just before graduation, the student would unenroll and go back into their homeschool setting. So the graduation would occur through homeschool. And that would not count towards our graduation. It would not hurt us or harm us. And by unenrolling, they would not be counted as a dropout either. So just to have knowledge. So In short, the student would need to enroll in the high school for at least 2 classes. They could have 1 class on campus. That's an LEA option. It would generate state ADM. It would not count towards graduation rate and not count towards dropout rate. But please review the policy from North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And if you notice in the very first sentence, it says that a student may participate, ... provided they meet applicable North Carolina High School Athletic Association and the local Board of Education eligibility
And
requirements.
that's where we
And
get some
that's where you come into
flexibility.
play. All right, so
Because they could, if they wanted to play football, they could enroll and then unenroll in December and not be our student anymore at all. I don't like
but they
them
would have to
floating in and
sit
out
out.
like that.
They would have to sit out 365 days before they could come back. So they would miss the next season in that case scenario. So with that, take a look at the policies, read through them. We'll come back in June, and I'll seek guidance from you whether you'd like to have a board policy or an administrative requirement.
All right, moving on now, we're to the 5.5 AIG plan.
I got
I'm
a
sorry.
quick question for Joe. Private schools live under a totally different set of rules, don't they? They don't have to.
They compete in the high school association. Sports, they are under the same rules and regulations.
But isn't there a set of rules for independent high schools versus the North Carolina High School Athletic Association?
Now, if they're playing in the North Carolina High School Athletic Association league, if they have their own private school league and they're not competing against us,
Okay.
they can do whatever they want.
But there are some that do compete in our leagues because I've seen them in playoffs.
So then they would have to
Yeah.
follow North Carolina High School Athletic
So if they compete in our league, they must follow the same rules.
Yes.
Everything rules, regulations.
I guess where I was going is I know that there's one of the private schools here in the county is teaming with the homeschool teach to create sport teams to compete, but they're not competing in our league.
Movement where they try to get a homeschool league going, and I'm assuming that failed, this is why this has come up. Where they can now enroll and play on our teams.
Yeah. What I'm saying is some homeschool kids are going to and teaming with one of the private schools to create a team to play.
Well, they wouldn't be allowed against high school association, they wouldn't be allowed against our high school. Why
Right.
not? They'd be illegal players. They could do it against other similar schools.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And I do hear what you're saying, Terry. What would bother me the most, and I want every child, wherever they're getting their education, to be successful, but it would bother me that our students who have stuck with us and been at that high school may lose an opportunity to play because somebody that comes in and enrolls in 2 classes online gets that spot. So there's a lot of gray area that has to be sifted through. But the North Carolina High School Athletic, they've already adopted this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
realize
it's in
it's
play.
already out there.
It's in play.
I get that. But no, what bothers me is when we look at things like attendance records, and I know we have strict attendance records, and yet when I'm in town or whatever, I know of homeschool students that I see at Walmart in the middle of the morning. And so I'm not saying they can't do that, but I'm just saying that's not like going to school.
They're studying supply chain.
Whatever. Believe what y'all want to believe.
All right, we're at 5.5, and Miss Ashley Padgett is this is the first reading of secondary curriculum.
This is the first reading of a very massive document. So the PowerPoint I'm going to go through is going to go over some of the big points, the big changes. There are also, when we get to the end of the PowerPoint, I'm going to show you where some other resources are that can kind of guide you through the document while you're enjoying it. So the AIG plan it's a 3-year plan. We're looking at for 2019-2022 to July 15th, the DPI. So one of the things that we need to look at are numbers of students currently, Beaufort County Schools, AIG. If you go to the hyperlink, you'll see it for the last 6 years. I did a comparison. Obviously, when you look at our numbers are growing, but one of the big discrepancies that we see are still with our African American or our black students. That number is very low compared, and these are identified students. It has been growing over the last 10 years, our trend data, but is very concerning. Another piece of data that I want to show you as we look at the plan is this is a positive. A lot of times you will hear people talk about that AIG students do not grow or that it's hard for teachers to grow AIG students. If you look at this, anything above a 2 in that growth index is high growth. A -2 to a 2 is growth. Less than -2 is not growth. And if you look at this with math, what you'll see is that we are indeed, other than 8th grade and Math 1, we are indeed growing our AIG students. Math 1, most of those students were actually in 8th grade when they took that because very few AIG students take Math 1 in the high school. But that is a positive. Of course, we want everything to be blue. You'll see the same in reading, except for in 4th grade. Again, we have that growth index with our AIG students. So how is this happening, our growth piece? Currently, we have something called an AIG specialist, and those are people who work with an AIG licensure that they're identified as an AIG specialist. We also, you'll see in the plan, something called an AIG designee, someone who does not have the AIG licensure. They're not paid by AIG funds, but they can will work with the AIG students. But a lot of what you're seeing happening is actually AIG in the core curriculum. Since 2010, we've made sure that all the wonderful teachers who worked out there, that differentiation piece has been in the core curriculum. Starting with this plan, we have right now a PD plan partnership with Barton College. The reason we are looking at Barton is ECU right now is currently reworking their coursework, and Barton has a reputation of working with the Northeast with AIG licensed teachers. What we would like to do is train in the next year our school designees and get our AIG specialists more PD, and actually school counselors are part of this too with the social emotional. The reason why I have those teachers there, those schools there without an AIG specialist is based on the amount of AIG students at those schools and our number, the allotment that we get from the state. We have not funded positions there, but I want to bring that to your attention. Of course, we would love to have them there. So state funding, this is our state allotment. LUMAC helped with the local funding, and basically we took the percentage of AIG students and we took line items that we use locally, like technology and other funding, to get to the second number. So types of identification, when you read the plan, these are some words you're going to see over and over again. An IG student, intellectually gifted, means that they possess a notably higher ability. Now, we have something called local norms. Every county can decide what these look like. They're based on recommendations from the state. 96% or higher on at least an IQ or cognitive skills test is what we call an IG. If they have that, they're automatically intellectually gifted. And academically and intellectually gifted is an AI. I know it looks like it should be AIG, but that's just because in Power School they only let it be used two initials. These are people who have students that have that 96 and above, and they also have really strong academic piece. And then you have the academically gifted. You can be academically gifted all over or academically gifted with reading or math. And then what you're going to see here, I'm going to flip through these for you to look at. The state wants everyone to be very specific on what this identification is. K3, and you're going to see 3-8, and that is not a misprint because third grade can kind of fall into either track. But you'll see how these identifications look slightly different. So there's K3, there's a 3-8, and then there's a 9-12. What we do, just for your knowledge, accountability, Audrey, Lily, and I work with our AIG specialists, and we actually grab the data in the school year, and we push it out to the schools, since we have access to the data who fall in these categories. We have added something under this called 3 authentic academic artifacts, which I'll define here, because what we're finding is, since there is this disparity, maybe we're missing it. Like, for example, and you had a kid who did the robotics, and they found out that plants make you feel better. And they did research and they wrote a grant. That is surely an academic artifact. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that we want to claim. And then that kind of goes over how we do our data. So programming, core, we talk about core, and we look at core. AIG as a state motto is AIG is all day, every day. We look at them, whether they're with a specialist or the core teacher, they're always AIG. And that's why we talk about our framework and our pacing guides. And K-3, again, you're going to see a slight difference here. Here we're going to use the word designate because, again, when we get to Eastern or Snowden, and I'm talking to the Snowden principal, and I'm going to talk to Eastern about how that designate will work into the schedule. It is very important in K-3 that we have a nurturing program. We have that right now at John Cotton Taylor. We have it at Bath Northeast. And we will, hopefully, after working tonight, have lunch at the primary. Having that nurturing program really helps change those gaps of who we've identified, because they work with students on critical thinking skills, problem solving, making some inferences. And once we have a good nurturing program, typically those numbers change. That shows the first data piece. It talks about programming, what we want it to look like in 4-5, 6-8, and 9-12. And next year we met with the curriculum council just before this meeting. We're looking at some pilot curriculums. That would be the curriculum council, AIG specialist designee, the SID team administration we would look at for next year. And the reason we have that is because some schools, they need more help with the sciences with their AIG, some reading and some math, so we can see what would be good for add-on for those gifted students. And then what you have here is a link to a draft. I'll share this with the AIG teachers and assistant principals who've been working on this. And share it out with the parent group after y'all talk. But this has all of all the documents that support the new plan. And there's lots of things, timelines you'll see in there, the PD plan, PowerPoint presentations for parents, summer opportunities. There's a lot of information in there. Any questions? And I can show you what that looks like. And so it looks like this, and all of those are live links, broken up for just generic AIG plan stakeholders and the specialist designee plans.
Any questions? It's a lot to look at and read. But we thank you for putting it all together. And,
Great team, good people to work with who worked on it.
actually, I've been reading a lot lately. There was even a study done by the New England Journal of Medicine, maybe in February or March, and it was from a lot of child psychologists and educators. And I don't know how far down the line this is going to come in the larger metropolitan areas where they did most of these studies. But it was a 10-year study, and it was on children from the age of 4 to 6, which would be pre-K through first grade. And they, in these pilot programs, they went around, and some of them had, you say nurturing, I don't know what that plan actually is, but they had pre-K and kindergarten being less about core academics and more about exploration, creativity. The word play, was kind of taken out of the curriculum years ago because we don't want to think that they're playing, but that through play, they were finding, and then they did all this over this 10-year period, and it was real, and I'd like to find it, but it really broke it down in these larger schools where they did this. And like over 80% of the kids that were allowed in from 4 to 6 to be more creative and less, we're going to have 40 minutes of reading, we're going to have 50 minutes of math. They tested higher at the age of 7 than the kids that jumped right into curriculum at the age of 4 and 5. Do you ever get any of that kind of feedback? And I thought it was really interesting, and it made a lot of sense that they were talking about how we push a little too hard sometimes when they're I think at 5 years old they're still babies, but
and I am not the kindergarten or first grade or pre-K specialist, so I can look at, but I do know, again, just thinking with the AIG, when you look at the nurturing, that is a big part, that letting kids be creative, letting kids be inquisitive, letting kids make comparisons that are innately their own and all that.
And it's gently guided by the teacher, certainly, but they learn more about math through playing with blocks than being made to count them on a piece of paper. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting, and I didn't know if you all ever look at that. And there's really been a big push of that, especially,
There's a lot of push.
about that they're by the time they're in second grade, all of those students were testing higher and had not had as many academics as the other kids. So there is something to it. But thank you for putting all
You're
this
welcome.
together.
If y'all have any questions, y'all know where to find me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the CTE plan, Miss Wendy Petteway. And we have a link on that too. This is the evening for a PowerPoint. I never know whether to turn around.
We come to you each year to talk about the CTE program and for the plan for the next year. I'm going to include a few different things this year because there is a transition coming up. Just a reminder that CTE is not the old vocational program that was just for a certain group of students. CTE is now for any student, and it helps them along their career pathway. For 1920, we will be transitioning from the Perkins 4, which has been around for many years now. So next year is a transition year to Perkins 5. And so since this is a transition year, this will be the last year that the plan is written and exists for Perkins 4. And so things may look a little more generic than they would normally look in the goals and objectives. When you go and look inside the plan, you'll see data. The data is populated, both the goals and the actual data for our school system are populated by the state. Those pieces of data basically come from Power Schools. And so I just wanted you to know that. The measures for Perkins 5 will focus on very similar measures to what we had for Perkins 4. And I don't know that I've really gone into detail with y'all, and I'm not going to do a lot of detail tonight, but I wanted to just give you some comparisons to 4 and 5 and what actually is compared in those particular plans. CTE is not just measured by CTE measures. If you'll look at the first two measures, the reading language arts is our 10th grade English language arts. Our academic attainment in math is our Math 1, and beginning last year, the students who had taken Math 1 in 8th grade, our measure for that is their Math 3. So we are measured across on how the entire district is doing. The technical skill attainment, those are things that are specific to CTE. If you look, typically right now we are measured by what we call post-assessments. Every CTE course is post-assessed. And sometimes, and we have done this as a district for a few years now, if an industry credential is able to be counted in lieu of the post-assessment, we do allow that. For example, if a student takes the NCCER test and they pass all the modules for that, then they do not have to take the post-assessment, and they are counted as proficient for us. If you look at the multiple measures that will take place in Perkins, you will also see things that you will probably be familiar with that I report to you as well. The post-secondary credentials, which are the industry credentials we talk about. The post-secondary credits, which we don't talk about a lot, but we do count. The CCP courses that are done. The work-based learning, which we do actually have reports on when we report out each year for our Pathways to Prosperity. Then the remainder of things, the secondary school completion will continue, and that's our 5-year graduation cohort. The 4-year graduation rate, of course. And then post-secondary placement, which was our secondary placement, we do a concentrator survey every year. The students who previously graduated from Beaufort County Schools as concentrators are surveyed every year by teachers, by CDCs, by me sometimes, and we put the information in Power Schools, and we ask them questions like, are you in the military? Are you in school? Do you have a job? Those types of things. And so we have to actually do the surveys for at least 80% of our concentrators every year, and that's where that particular measure comes from. You'll notice that they're taking out non-traditional participation, and they are actually leaving in the non-traditional. They put it, the completion, there was 2 measures for non-traditional, and now there's only going to be 1. Non-traditional, just to refresh your memory, for example, if you have a male in the health sciences, that would be considered non-traditional. If you have a female in carpentry or electrical or welding, that would be considered non-traditional. So that kind of gives you a definition. So these are the comparisons of what we're going to be looking at for next year and transitioning to. Some other things that are different, we can now, in the transition to 5, use funds to go down into the 5th grade for career exploration, because we're finding that as young as 5th grade, 4th grade even sometimes, our kids are starting to formulate what they're going to do and starting to get those ideas, and we're trying to help them step through that process. The new thing with the Perkins 5, and we do some needs assessments now, sometimes more informally, but there will be a comprehensive needs assessment that is conducted every year. And it will have to be done to prepare for the Perkins 5 plan. We actually piloted the state's assessment plan a couple of years back, so we are familiar with that. It can be done per school, per district, in a variety of ways. And then there will be new benchmarks. You will notice if you look at the plan that the state sets goals each year for each LEA, and those benchmarks are negotiated with the federal education department. And so we will be getting new benchmarks set for the new Perkins. Just to kind of give you some updates that I do for you every year, this year we have over 2,600 unduplicated enrollments in grades 6 through 12, meaning those are individual students. Now, some of those students may have multiple CTE courses, but those are individual students that are in CTE courses. Our career academies that we've had, the automotive, the fire safety, and then the industrial design at Washington, we've been able to do some things with some EWIF funds for the last several years. That grant will officially end June 30th of 2019. So, but we have been supporting those positions with regular CTE dollars, and also since we got those up and running, we support those with regular CTE dollars as well. We'll be looking at articulated college credits and some industry credentials. Just note, internships and pre-apprenticeships. We have pre-apprenticeships for the first time this year. We are actually the first district in the East. We have partnered with Beaufort Community College. They got those underneath their care about a year ago or so. We actually have 2 pre-apprentices, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a start. And we have 2 that will begin this summer with their respective companies. Y'all know about GRAD. We've discussed that before. And then we are looking at the Golden Leaf revision to upgrade programs further. We try to provide the equipment and the tools that are necessary for our programs, and we do our very best with CTE dollars and other dollars that we can come across, but there's always upgrades and things that our businesses would like to see us have that we could improve. Just a few highlights. We had over 2,000 industry credentials in 2017-18, 139 internships, which was up from the previous year. We have typically good pass rates for our nursing students, our nursing fundamental students. And then articulated credits, and we hold joint advisory meetings with Beaufort Community College. You can see our historical results from CRC, Career Readiness Certificates. Our industry credentials, you can see it jumped quite a bit last year. The state will tell you that we had 2,663 credentials, but we always counted a certain way, and I wanted you to have apples to apples comparison. But if you go look at a state record, they will tell you that we earned 2,663, and that would be 120% of our enrollment. Multiple credentials per student, like Microsoft, you can get 2 credentials in the same course sometimes. Our Automotive Academy, yay, we have our ASE certification and accreditation. That was just completed this year, and that is a tough process. We've had significant help from our industry partners. Mr. Steve Lee, you'll see in this picture, and his staff they were very instrumental there. Brian Van Geisen from Beaufort Community College. Many of our independent automotive folks have helped us, and we are proud of this certification. It's not an easy thing to get. So our students can now go out with their certifications from our program. Just a reminder of the fire and public safety. There's a link there for the video, which you've seen previously, but if anybody would like to see it, it's there. We do practice, and we are partners with the Chocowinity Fire Department for this particular program. Our visual and performing arts, I didn't really put any pictures this year. We had several pictures last year, but we have been able to bridge some gaps. Damon Walcott is the teacher who was an art teacher, is now a CTE licensed teacher as well. He taught video and did a phenomenal job. Now he can give those students their Adobe credential and certification. We are hoping to test about 16 of his students, and we're hoping for several of them to obtain that credential. So we're crossing those boundaries. Just a couple of pictures. I know you like to see our kids and what they're doing. Different things. Our ag is making strides in various places. Washington in particular, we had a first-year teacher this year, and she's been doing a phenomenal job with the kids and expanding the program. And just some pictures of what some of our CNC machines and some things we've done with SpinRite. They did a clean room down at Southside last spring late and installed it at SpinRite. Our partners, we've really worked with our partners. This is iconic. Last year there was a tour open to counselors, teachers, anybody who wanted to go, and that's Miss Mary over there that's heading up the tour, and several of our folks took us up on this tour. It was pretty hot that day. Our career pathways, it's not just one way in and one way out. It's multiple in and out throughout life. This was speed jobbing this year. You'll see Mr. Doan up there, and Mr. Swenson was there. You saw him in an earlier picture. Mr. West is there from NC Works, and the Chamber sponsored this. Our teachers and our students and our businesses said that this was a very successful program. They got a chance to meet with many different students in this particular activity, and these are students that are not focused on going to a four-year school. We're trying to provide our students who are going to stay here and be in our community, maybe permanently, to have opportunities to earn a livable wage and have a rewarding career. Again, we had a Max Carolina grant in conjunction with Region Q and some of our partners. Again, we're having our students sit down informally with our industry folks and talk to them about what they need and what they want in the employees that they're looking for. And then just a few other things. The health science, they're practicing their skills. We have a personal finance, a professional financial advisor there. We do offer the personal finance that's been such a hot topic in the news, and that's been around with us for a few years now. And actually this year was the first year it was offered at all three comprehensive high schools. And also you may have seen on the news the Reality of Money that is sponsored by the State Employees Credit Union. We've been working with them on that for a few years as well. We had it actually at Northside High School this past Tuesday. Actually, that was yesterday. It seems like a long week. And then we had a baby goat born at Washington High School. He was actually born during the day, so that became a hot topic of conversation. If you follow Facebook, you probably saw it. And that's the end. Please, if you have any questions, I know this is for you to look over right now. If you want to discuss any part of the CTE plan, we've done a draft, but we can discuss and change things as necessary.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Petteway. All right. We will keep going, and now we're going to get to the action portion, and the first one is Ms. Myers, Emily Myers, math instructional coach. This is on the high school math books. I think she's asking for money, aren't she? What? I see the word quote. That usually involves money.
Yes, ma'am. So, good afternoon, guys. I'm Emily Myers. I'm here today on behalf of the high school math teachers seeking approval for the high school math workbook pilot. So back in April, I had the opportunity of presenting to the board about the pilot. So I know that was a long time ago, so I did want to provide you a little recap of that. So the pilot is for high school Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3 consumable student workbooks. It will cover Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3. It will have teachers from Washington, Northside, Southside, EdTech, PS Jones, Northeast, and Bath. So through this pilot, approximately 1,020 students and 15 teachers will be impacted, and all of the teachers who are participating in the pilot have volunteered for this pilot. It is something that they have asked for. With tax, the total for the pilot comes to $23,954.70. That does include a free day of professional development, which we were able to get for the teachers. In April, you also asked for a long-term projection, so how much would this cost overall? I did put that together for you guys as well. The long-term projection with all of the students in the district would come to around $39,000. So thank you guys so much for y'all's support, and do y'all have any questions?
I do. In the schools that you mentioned, is there any particular reason why CMS is not participating?
Right. Yeah, I was wondering, because we talked about it before, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Yes, so a couple of the schools chose not to participate in the pilot because they wanted to see how it went. But they also felt like the materials that they had at this time were sufficient until they saw what the effects were.
So they want to.
So what are they using?
Yeah, what?
CMS currently has an Algebra 1 textbook. So they are using an old textbook, which the teacher knows the standards well enough to be able to adapt to meet the current standards.
Did we encourage them not to do that?
Yes, you can encourage them.
I mean, did we encourage them, or did we just leave it up to them to decide?
Specifically, principals were invited to this discussion with their personnel. Okay. So at this time, since the pilot, they did have a site-based decision to make. And so right now, since the teacher population feels secure in what they're using, they're waiting to see what these outcomes are.
Okay.
So.
And we do have some teachers, for example, that teach multiple courses that decided they wanted to do the pilot in one of their preps so that they could get a true feel and truly master what this program was about before taking it on for all of their preps, because they do have multiples.
What is the name of this program?
It is the WASH.
Oh, I thought that was just the company, but that's the actual
It is,
name.
but it's the workbooks that they have. And they have programs for all Common Core math, but they have actually put together North Carolina specific books, which is something that's been very difficult to find with something specific to North Carolina standards.
That caters to the standard.
Yes.
Does this have a track record yet?
So
I know the word pilot means it doesn't have a track record with us, but does it have a track record somewhere else?
Correct. So I did talk with the company because I wanted to know the same thing. I wanted to know if there were other districts using it. Charlotte-Mecklenburg is currently one of the big districts that's using it, so I've been talking with them about that. Mm-hmm. So I am in contact with their specialist.
But no one that's really close to us that our teachers could collaborate with?
I did not, in the list, I did not see anyone in our region.
Okay. I'm not downplaying, I'm just wondering, they're always looking for somebody else. Of course, I find with social media, they always can find out somebody that's using it and get advice. Not that they don't take your advice, but they do like to talk to another teacher that's having success or lack of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Are there any questions? You're needing approval to spend that money,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
We mentioned the last time she presented about the schools that wanted to pilot this utilizing their funds versus coming to us. Where are we at on that?
I would prefer that we use our funds on this right now, as we still have questions about how your Title I funding is going to be allocated for next year. And so I would think, since this is mostly a district pilot, I'd like to use our funding where applicable.
Any other questions? Then I need
Have
to-
we got the funds?
That's the big question. Do we have the funds without taking them from somebody else?
We're taking or using Miss Lily's textbook.
So yes, you had $485,000 balance in your textbook funds. So yes.
That's enough to cover it. I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Just pick anyone for a second. I think you have 2, 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, budget amendment. Mr. Willie Matt Carolyn.
Yes, ma'am. You all have before you tonight Budget Amendment 522, 2019. You'll see that on the state funds, there's an increase of approximately $526,749.51. The large pieces of this are the summer reading camp funding for the upcoming program. Some small increases within some various pots, being the non-instructional support, school technology. Then we have the funding for the reading bonuses for the third grade reading program, as well as the test results for the principals and CTE folks. And then we had some additional funds coming in for transportation. Basically, those are the sums, the larger ticket items on that part of our budget amendment. The next budget amendment is allocating basically the additional monies that we needed to meet the charter school payments for the year, pulling from some monies that we had set aside for some possible overruns in the ROTC program, as well as pulling some money from our low wealth funding. There again, it's low wealth, trying to keep my apples and apples between our different funds. The next one is your Fund 3. We received an additional $74,200. The big part of that was the $80,000 for the school improvement target, Title I, and then we had a decrease on a state improvement grant of $5,800. The next one that you have are basically some additional funding or costs associated with the FEMA projects on the flooring at CPS. And then the last one, the next one is shifting costs or allocations of expenditures within the various child nutrition sites that we have. There again, that's a net balance of zero. Fund 6, it's the funds that were collected and dispensed to the various schools. This amendment is an addition of $166,488. Your next part of the budget amendment is Fund 7, that shows the after-school programs at Eastern Elementary and John Cotton Tech for a total of $23,104.20. And then we have various allocations and disbursements of approximately $22,972 in Fund 8. Any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to move approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you on that. All right, our next action item is Southside High School Wrestling. Mr. Cheeseman.
I'm actually going to defer to Joe here, as he did provide the update on the 42x42 wrestling mat through his recommendation to the council. As you'll see, that the mat costs $10,514. Mr. Oliver, I just want to make sure that you had some of your questions answered around wrestling in terms of participation.
Yes, sir.
I think Joe may have answered those.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So in short, I'm just here to answer any other questions that you might have about starting the formal season at Southside High School.
And all these different quotes, are you asking we fund everything? It seemed like there was something they were.
So
gonna
we
provide.
specifically, I agreed to Principal Rick Anderson that the district would fund the mat at a cost of $10,000, that he would have to pay the surplus of that. That was the original conversation, which he agreed to. But that's going to a 42 by 42 mat at the recommendation of the district's athletic director, but he'll have to pay the additional $514, which he has site-based funding, he can do that.
Okay. I'm glad they went to the bigger mat. I'm glad they went to the bigger mat.
I think that's wise.
Cost-wise, it wasn't much more.
No, but it makes a
Safety
difference.
first.
Right, makes a difference in the safety. All right, any questions?
Joe, got one question. The conference that Southside's in, how many schools in that conference have a wrestling program?
There are 2 schools, not counting them, that have wrestling, and that's obviously not enough to have a conference. And the state have merged them last year. There were 2 other schools in another conference, so they had 4 that were in a wrestling conference together. Southside coming will make it 5 schools that are having it, but they're from 2 different conferences.
But are they about the same size schools, the 2
Yes.
conferences? So they're not having to wrestle up or?
Right, 2 of the schools are already in their conference. So there's going to be 3 schools in their conference with wrestling, and they're allowing 2 others to come into their conference and compete.
And the beauty of wrestling is it's by weight.
Right.
By weight.
So it doesn't really matter so much well, I guess it matters the student pool you have, but a 110-pound wrestler is still a 110-pound wrestler no matter how big your student body is, right?
Right. And they're going to
Good point.
compete against 1A. The state's got 4 classifications, just like any sport, 1A wrestling, 2A, 3A, 4A. And then it's subdivided into big 1A and little 1A. So they really have 8.
And there's a
Matt,
multitude.
Matt, just to clarify, that's one of the questions I asked Joe. I sent him an email earlier this week and asked him, because I had a little concern over a 1A school having a wrestling program, and I also have concern over our schools having too many athletic programs and for the size that they are. But I asked him how many students had shown interest in participating, and he said that they had a list of 34 boys and 3 girls that were interested. I asked him how many schools in the conference had wrestling programs, which he just answered that. I asked him how many 1A schools in the state have wrestling programs. He said 50. And then I also asked just how many, just in general, in the East had wrestling programs. He said 60. So I was just making sure that they had somebody to compete against and something that would be a viable program. So
Thank you for doing that. That helped solve a lot of questions.
I assigned wrestling officials to the schools in the east from Edgecombe County to Outer Banks. It's pretty solid in about 60 schools, in the 50s probably. That's including middle schools also. Most of them are varsity.
And once you really get into the wrestling program, there are so many invitationals. You literally could wrestle every weekend if you wanted to.
Ever have a home match?
Right, because there's so many. My nephew wrestled, and every weekend there was another. Of course, that coach wanted them, the more experience they had, the better they were. But there was an invitational. They would travel 2-3 hours or 30 miles down the road, but there was somebody to wrestle and get the experience. So I feel like Southside would have those same opportunities.
We'll compete against Washington, and Washington has a Christmas invitation.
Right. And there's a big one, the Beast down east or something like that. Yeah, something like that. That's a big one. Yeah. All right. Well, he's looking for a motion and.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Michael, second by Mr. Draper. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Good luck. You're going to help them. All right.
Thanks, Joe.
You too. Next up is the 2019-20 calendar. Mr. Cheeseman, you've got a link.
Sure.
Two links.
So specifically, if you look at the 2019-2020 proposed calendar, we did put this up on our district website, asked for feedback. We did receive 3 comments. Specifically, the first one was questioning why we don't have 185 days. We're using the 1,025-hour rule. The second comment was just a personal choice, asking if we, instead looking at August 19th through the 23rd as professional work days, to allow them to be optional days, as this individual is a veteran teacher and that person would prefer to be able to designate their own time. And then the third comment was to align the calendar completely to the community college system for testing. And I think that's what we've been trying to do with our state lawmakers. So in short, I've not had any other commentary. And again, this calendar came specifically from a calendar committee composed of approximately 25 teacher professionals in the district. And then the other link specifically is the calendar proposal for the early college. And again, there was no feedback on that one. So with that,
went to all the schools, so everybody had a chance.
we had representation from all schools. So with that, I'm asking you to consider approval as presented.
Are we still getting resistance to follow the college schedule with our regular schools, or?
We're still getting resistance from your state lawmakers right now, who I think you're saying, the House, your representatives are really trying to listen to superintendent feedback on behalf of all the teachers and LEAs. But right now, I think the Senate is still making a consideration in that moment. But I don't believe that you would see any calendar changes for this upcoming year. And even if it suddenly came to fruition, I think you might be hard pressed to make change for what's going to happen in 100 days.
But it is possible we may see it for next.
Yes, there's other ways of looking at it. We still need to work with Representative Kidwell and Senator Smith just to continue advocating for us on our behalf.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve the calendar?
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Terry, a second by Mac. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Now, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
About the current one. No, this was something I was asking, I wasn't really sure. Generally, the last day of school for us, that in my memory, has been an early release, and it is on this calendar. This would be before Matthew, so you might not have the answer. How did we end up with last school day this year being a full day? Did we? Is that the way we approved it, or did we change? Did we change it or something?
No, we left it a full day with the option to change based on weather in case we needed the hours.
Okay.
Because
we need
we all-
hours?
I would think not. We haven't.
Because, most people have their little moving up, whatever, and all the students leave at 9 o'clock and go home.
Right.
So there's no point in us really being there for a full day at the end of school this year.
When I accurately predicted that we would suffer 2 hurricanes last year, I wanted to give us plenty of time in the spring in case we needed those hours. But through my leadership, we were able to still accomplish what we needed to do.
Job well done.
Go home early.
Okay, so can we change it?
First
off, thank you.
Led to 2 hurricanes. I don't know if you heard
So
that.
can we make that motion then to
We'll
change
start on
that
the
to a
agenda.
half
I'm just
day?
asking.
Can we make
So
that
can we
motion to
change
change
that
it to a
this
half
late?
day?
Because there's no point in having a full day when everybody's going to leave at
I can
9:30 to go home.
Right.
I can.
I'd make it a half day.
So that's fine.
Do what, Matthew?
I'll work
He
in
can
this.
do it.
I'll work in
Okay.
the system.
That's
Sarah,
fine.
really.
I mean, I just hadn't seen it, and I couldn't remember if we changed it during the year. But
No,
it was you looking out for us.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, I need somebody to look out for me.
When did we buy HR Doppler radar?
Well, he's as good as most of us, but they only write half the time and still keep your jobs.
If the goat at Washington is wet, we're in trouble.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, spring policy updates, Mr. Cheeseman.
Well, with that comment, ladies and gentlemen of the board, you've had this from the previous board meeting. So these are your updates from the North Carolina School Board Association, just putting you back in alignment with the legalese. And so I'm specifically, unless you have questions, asking for your approval as presented.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any discussion? I think I was supposed to do the discussion for that anyway. All right, let's keep going. Field trips.
You have three field trips as presented. Bath Elementary School with Washington, D.C., looking at next school year. Please note the date is 2020. Northside High School, looking at June of this year for the state FFA competition in Raleigh. And then also Washington High School again this year, but over the summertime, looking at that wrestling camp at North Carolina State University. So I would request your approval for the field trips as presented.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. All right, Superintendent, fiscal agent, and applying for federal funds grant.
Specifically, this comes out of the previous conversation where Mr. Singleton, overseeing our federal programs, was seeking specific superintendent authority, so the person in this position having authority to act as a fiscal agent on your behalf. So unless you have questions, I would ask that you...
So we're going to give Matthew that authority.
Move
huh?
approval.
Move second.
There we go.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. There you go, big guy.
Well, thank you.
Don't go rogue.
What you wanted.
Greg wanted it.
Yeah.
Greg wanted it. All right, well, that was awesome.
I've been asking you, shall we?
That's right, that's right. All right, thank you. I'm just kidding. All right, now we need a motion to go into closed session, Mike.
Move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318, 11A1 and 8 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under General Statute 115C-321.
Second.
We got a motion and a second by Ms. Booth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to open the door. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming tonight. Okay, we are back in open session, and I want to entertain a motion to approve our personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and we have...
Yes, I want to recuse myself from 1C.
Okay, got that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Calendar for June. What do we have on the calendar? Other than our
Consider changing the 4th to the 3rd.
Yes, you
I
have
can't
it.
be here. Matter of fact, Michael, can you be here?
I was going to ask that
I'm
you...
not here in June at all.
The rec department, I'll even tell you on this, it's not me personally attending a ball game, but Washington Rec is having tournaments, and some of us are having to volunteer and help.
Okay.
So I'm going to be tied up a lot that week trying to.
the week of the 3rd. You're saying on the 4th.
Well, it's scheduled for the 4th, but I have to come.
Well, would you like to
But I'm
just
not sure
move it
about
to the...
Michael's schedule. He's-
Would you like...
I'm going to have to call in June anyway.
Would you like to move it to the following week, June 11th? Because that way, school's already let out.
Sure. Then you need to move the other one too, wouldn't you?
Well,
Keep
the
2
last
weeks
one is,
between.
well, the last one's typically flexible because the end of year closeout with
I don't
finance
care,
anyway.
that's fine with me, I'm just saying, I was just saying.
So would all of you
How does the
consider
11th,
June
how does the
11th?
11th look?
That's fine with me.
Some of these are running close together anyway.
Yeah, okay. How about we move that one to the 11th? And then the last one for now, we're going to say it's the 25th, unless we were to need to come back to approve some financial information or something for Willie Mack to
So we're going to move that one too?
Yeah, I don't see the point in going the 11th and the 18th, if we
Okay.
want to go the 11th and the 25th. But like I said, with Willie Mack closing out the books and everything, he may need us to meet before the 25th so he can close some stuff out. So we will let you know that as soon as he gets word to us.
So what are you saying, 11th and the 25th?
For now, the 11th and the 11th for sure, and the 25th is going to be tentative, because that really does push him to get things closed out and get approved. So we may have to go the 11th and sometime the week of the 17th. All right. All right? All right, and same time at 5:30. Board member updates. Been starting that one in and going around. Ms. Booth, do you have a board member update for us on anything? All right, Mr. Hodges.
All right, first off, I attended the School Board Association meeting last Friday in Raleigh, trying to fill the big shoes of Ms. Booth. I don't have a lot to report. There was a lot of just some updates on some legal issues and stuff at that time. But if I see that it needs to be worthwhile to report for that meeting, I will.
Okay.
The other is an attachment here. I try to give you all the updates you need from our school over in Janesville. So this is everything that was handed out at our meeting last week at that monthly meeting, so y'all can look it over and review and everything.
Okay.
And Anyway, yeah, I would advise you to look at the very last page. I think it's the last page. Lisa was very nice to put this on the board docs for us. But you need to look at the last page on that actually.
Okay,
That's
all
very
right.
important to look at.
All right, anything else? All right.
Just a
Carrie.
small thing. Did anybody else get this invitation in the mail? Who's in front? It snowed? Okay, it wasn't on the envelope, it wasn't on the, I appreciate being invited, I just didn't know where to go.
I don't know what it is.
It was an invitation to a moving up ceremony. It gave the date and information, but it didn't say where it was at, and the envelope didn't have a return or anything. Yeah, it didn't say what school it was. She says it's Snowden. Okay.
It come from where? Because I got one too.
I didn't know. She said, Lisa says Snowden.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else, Terry?
No.
Michael?
Just congratulations to all of the sports teams that have done finished and those who have continued. I think baseball's still going on. I've had the chance to watch girls soccer, and they did an excellent job against their game. And I'm a little biased, which probably should have won it, but they played their hearts out. And congratulations to the rest of the county.
We got some great schools out there.
We did.
Our student athletes have done a fantastic job in the fall, winter, and spring on representing their home schools. I really do appreciate it. It's a tremendous amount of time. Our coaches don't do this for the money. Obviously, they do it because they love the sport, and they especially love our kids participating. So if you have a moment, thank a coach for their time, and those assistant coaches get paid less than zero, so some of them really do. I want to also remind everybody that we have graduations coming up. We have early college graduation this Friday night. All of the high school graduations will be on Saturday, June the 15th. I'm sure we'll put something out publicly, but most of all of those are by invitation.
With that mentioned, Lisa, can we have some of the high schools send us tickets this year? I mean, sometimes they, like, I know at Southside they had us pick them up inside.
Yes.
It'd be just really nice if we had them and not have to go thinking, I hope I get the ticket when I get inside. Now, Northside's always that kind of had their tickets at the door. But just curious, I mean,
Yeah.
last year they said it was because they didn't print them up till late. But we just need to do them ahead of time so we know we have them.
I also want to thank all the teachers. I know they're in the middle of testing. It seems like they're testing all the time. God bless them. But it's a very busy time for our teachers and our students, and we really do appreciate it. We appreciate all the hard work that goes into making this school year as great as it's been. Butch, anything going on down your neck of the woods you want to talk about?
Nope.
Okay. Terry.
Well, I guess, it's another year. I guess we are starting testing. Good luck to everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks for all the hard work, and that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now we're at superintendent updates.
Follow suit to what Mr. Draper said. Testing window really starts around May 29th. So you'll see coming off of Memorial Day, all of our kids engaged. The other part of that is, as previously announced, please look at the back document for what was shared in terms of student enrollment, which will be very interesting to you, that I'm pretty excited about. I've been asked to be a part of the board for the Girls and Boys Club. I've also been asked to be part of the board for the STEM initiative that Al Powell is leading. And I currently have accepted an appointment to the State Testing and Accountability Committee through Mark Johnson. So we'll meet again next fall. Our Curriculum Council had their first meeting today of teacher representation in order to reestablish that trust between district leaders and teacher leaders around curriculum and instruction. Washington High School will have a charter bus taking the baseball team tomorrow. Of course, you already understand the ORED study, and I'm happy to announce that I've been accepted into the East Carolina University doctoral program, which starts this summer.
You'll look great in purple.
I'm finally excited to be a part. So very, very excited. So thank you very much.
That's right. All right. We are very proud of you and appreciate the great job you've been doing.
And also with that, Mark Doan has been accepted into the North Carolina State Superintendents Association Aspiring Superintendents Program for next year, led by Dr. Jack Hoke, so we're very excited about that for Mark, too.
Yeah, congratulations. Mark.
All that excellent training last year that we provided him.
2 hurricanes.
Definitely baptism.
So, congratulations to you.
Sacrifice of travels.
Well, I'm personally very proud of our administrators and the job that they do each and every day. I don't think any of us have any idea how many phone calls and visits and everything they do, so I thank you. Now, Ms. Pete is not here, so I'm going to lean toward Michael to...
I'll make a motion to close us down for today.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned. Thank you.
So Karen's now off, so you will volunteer for that committee.